That Kamasai Washington, he's very good, isn't he?
Yeah, he's great.
He has sort of made a new kind of music. He's taken the spiritual part of John Coltrane and then other pleasant stuff without getting into the total free jazz, chaotic stuff that Coltrane went into. He balances it off with pleasant sounds as well as the spiritual anarchy of Coltrane. He's the next generation. It's more balanced. It's very pleasant. It's accessible for people. So I got a statement, important statement here. If you look at radio, TV, and all these different media environments, including money, they've all melted. See, it's the melting of the media environment, the Android meme. So now anybody can make their own radio station. They can make their own collage of stuff they like and broadcast it, or they can make their own movies or their own videos. So all the analog phase of the 20th century, these big media corporations that made media environments for people, now you can do it. That means you don't need any particular of those media. So money as a medium itself is in crisis because those big corporations that made a lot of money during the period when money was something, or even when credit was something, they're as vulnerable as anybody else over what people are going to decide which media are important. The culture battle is over which media are important. So you can see that money guys, they have to flood the world with their millions to keep money in a viable medium. See, this is the real battle over what you could get. There's millions of people that could organize themselves, especially younger people, into some kind of society. If they had access to different media and land, they could grow a whole city, and they wouldn't be based on money principles. They would, whatever their texting lives thought of for how you would organize responsibilities among people for their obligations to be part of the city. See? So potentially that's why they're not going to tolerate anybody telling them anything. What they want, these young kids, the people like Bernie Sanders, say, give us fucking environments. There's enough of them to make stuff in. We don't need you guys to fit us into your visual space. Doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. There's so many millions of people that are talented at all different levels that you just get, it's like McLuhan said, get a bunch of people together, you got wealth just by all the talents people put together. So you can make all kinds of environments if you didn't have people, well, we own all of the state of Massachusetts, and we're Saudi Arabians, and you're going to have to pay tribute to us. We'll get your local mayors and governors to tax you, and then they'll send us the money. This owning of land is so ridiculous. But you can see that those people that have prestige based on their wealth they made from owning land, they've got to keep that technology, that medium going.
Yeah.
But nobody's describing how vulnerable they are.
And that's what McLuhan was saying about nation states. They're not going to last long. They can't.
It's an old medium. It doesn't contain people. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to go to New York City to become wealthy so you can go to opera or have some nice swimming pool or access to first-run movies. Everybody gets that kind of media diet of analog media anybody can have access to. So that's not a status thing. That's not a special experience. So there's no reason for cities on that level, right? Mm-hmm. No level. So what environments are going to be made that will intrigue people to feel that they're getting some unique experience?
Yeah, and that's represented.
Well, we provide it with ION. What?
From the bottom.
Parallel worlds.
Parallel worlds.
That's why
am I here?
There's this Pokemon thing going on.
Right. Yeah. What were you saying, Susanna, was it, or Jean? You were saying something.
Oh, I am here. There's a new TV series called Homestead Rescue, and it represents from the bottom up. 2 million Americans have attempted to go off the grid and drop their jobs and move out of urban areas and buy an acreage in the middle of nowhere. And they don't know how to survive on their own. And so now there's this very experienced guy from Alaska that's coming into, and each show is about a different, usually a couple that have quit their jobs and bought 20 acres up in the mountains, and now they're trying to raise animals and grow their own food and stuff, but they don't have a clue how to do it. And the experienced guy from Alaska that comes in to rescue them will say, well, what did you do to prepare for this, to move away and survive on your own? And the one couple said, well, we watched a few YouTube videos, and they're trying to raise animals and grow their own food, and the one couple had no water on 20 acres. So the guy was driving into the town 80 miles round trip every day to get them water. And
how come they didn't notice that when they first moved there?
It was probably cheap land, right. And they thought, yep, they could start from there. It's crazier than anyone who has any experience.
Well, they're taking all rearview mirror ideas about what they're doing.
Yes.
They should have formed a group in suburbia about people interested in doing it. First, organize a community, then pool their resources, and then go find a place. But they, as individualist Americans, are on their own. They thought they had to do it by themselves.
Yep, they're isolating and creating their own space.
Which sounds ideal for an American, but it's not actually. Leads to all kinds of problems. So you need a training and perception first. That's what Iron does. We give you training and perception of all the factors that are going to limit you if you don't understand them.
Yes, and there is no more need to live like Robinson Crusoe.
Right.
Because there are technologies to live with high tech, and we don't have to be like a hippie.
Right. You can't drop out back to the old visual nature.
Well, and are the elites, they're just leaving the planet entirely and going to Mars. Or that's the new place to, create your own space.
Well, that's so fucking ridiculous. Who want to be stuck in a tin can and go there? But that's their images think that's going somewhere. So people are sitting here. This is what Ben Watson's always on about. Bob, the people can take over the means of production. They just do it. They walk in en masse. So he's trying to get people to get together and agree. But you can't get people on the same page anymore. But you could in suburbia, without a dramatic takeover, start thinking about what you are and what you do, and not vote or creative alternatives. People should be more creative in how they express their community. And this is what I am saying is the subcultures. The subcultures are people doing that, and they're doing it within paranoia and planning on this and that. Did you hear Trump's vice presidential choice? Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
Well, Steve wrote me. I don't know. I haven't seen what it is. He says this guy's a fundamentalist, evangel-like asshole, the kind of guy the Canadians hate. Why would Trump pick someone like that?
To draw the conservative Republican vote. He picked a real conservative.
Yeah. What?
He's balancing.
Balancing.
Republican. Yeah.
Well, what is he? Is he Republican? He's non-Republican.
He is Republican, but outrageous and out of control.
Oh, so he's got a very normal, old-fashioned, outrageous person.
Yeah.
A Republican.
He's Republican, and now he's got a conservative Republican.
Right. Yeah, he's liberal Republican, right? Socially liberal. Yeah.
Yes.
So, anyways, see, but people, you depend on your bodies, so it'd be very hard to get people. Most people will not fragment off with the community. They'll hope their job keeps going, or that they can survive in the mainstream somehow, because it doesn't require as much effort. It's not as frightening. But reality seems to be creeping in on people, the multiple realities, so that they can't hide anymore. That's the challenge for them, is to give up their basic American independent self and figure out how to relate to other people in a new way.
I don't think there's that American independent self anymore. Not
in the literate sense.
Yeah, they're just wanting to be told what to do and trust that.
No, do it this way then. I'll express it this way. The independent rugged guy was 100 years ago based on literate boundaries. You got multi-bodied people, and they want to keep using all their multi-bodies, so that hooks them into many technological environments that they're dependent on. And they're not willing to do it differently because it'll upset their ecology they already have of mingling the five bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So they're hoping that they can still make it in the comfort of managing their five bodies without some drastic interruption. But many Americans are having their lives disruptive, and they can't do their normal five-bodied rotation. Now they're going to be forced to make new things, to do new things. And that would be, so the new form of community is coordinated my five bodies with your five bodies. See, it's not coordinating my chemical body with you. People have all kinds of preferences in the different bodies. They want to watch certain TV programs. They want to watch certain kinds of religion or be a certain kind of religion in the astral body. They want to have a certain kind of chip body thing. So managing that in relation to another person makes forming a community really difficult.
Mm-mm. And plus, on top, not even realizing that they're managing five bodies.
Right. And so, as Coker says, flesh is weak, so it will gradually just drift into Neo in the Matrix tube. They'll be in a Matrix tube, hallucinating a reality. That's where it will gradually drift. Lazy flesh will go that way. What? What's so funny about that?
Catching Pokemon.
Yeah, catching Pokemons. Yeah. I mean, how?
That's what we're watching. We're watching that happen. Wow.
Yes, and I'm not watching it.
Well, that's what I
hear about it. I can't avoid it.
That's the lemmings. They're lemmings.
Yes, but no, that's a chemical body metaphor. That's people staying in one, running to the cliff, a physical body. This is chip body lemmingness, but it's different because they can disconnect from. They only do it for 20 minutes. Then they go do something else. See, the continuity is not there for the lemming. The old-fashioned lemming was everybody stayed continuous enough to run towards the cliff and go over the cliff and die, okay? There's no continuity in this Pokemon community. You just got photographs, media showing you, news media showing this, and you go, oh, wow, look, everybody's doing it. No, it's just a few million people doing it, but it's inflated. So you have to notice that you're being misinformed all the time, and whenever you engage in any old-fashioned medium.
That's true, yeah. Right, yeah.
And so it's very hard to articulate, to be vigilant in helping someone stop being fooled by the different media environments they're forgetting are not what they think they are. So, Pokemon, I'm only here talking about Pokemon because you guys brought it up. I'm not interested. I don't care. I'm not going to watch it. I will, when I go to look at my own picture on my Facebook page, see a Pokemon news item on my way to see myself, right? So I'll be informed by a half-a-second glimpse. But that's all I am going to do. I'm going to remain uninformed. I'm not going to engage it.
We have to make a program with different flavors of Lappert ice cream.
What, someone would have to do that, you're saying, to get my interest?
Yes. Yes, that.
Yeah, if Lappert's went out of business, that would get my interest. I'd become a radical activist. I'd blame the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Trilateral Commission for fucking up with my ice cream. I'd become a Marxist. I'd form a union.
Yes. But now there's people getting ice cream obsessed around the world and mowing people down and
That's right. This guy, the Bob meme is so powerful. He sat there. He claimed he was selling ice cream, but he actually was waiting for it to be delivered to him. And after 9 hours, nobody showed up, and he got pissed. So there was another point there. So engaging do you realize I have not watched a Super Bowl name any holidays, any fucking mass mind celebration been going on the last 40 years. I haven't engaged any of them. I've never watched the National Hockey League Stanley Cup. I never watched the World Series. I never watched the soccer shit. What else is there? Stock car racing. I don't go to the hit movies. Nothing. And yet I'm the most informed, active person on the planet. Because I can handle just getting glimpses.
My favorite one is favorite one is the 4th of July fireworks in Boston with synchronized to the Boston Pop Symphony Orchestra.
You experienced that?
Yes, and that's the greatest holiday.
That's your ultimate experience, you say?
And it's music and light, basically, of a holiday celebration. Yes, of the ones you were mentioning.
Yeah, did you hear about what happened? There was a big outrage, though. There was a PBS broadcast of the fireworks celebrations in Washington, D.C., and they always show it live, but the weather was bad, so the fireworks they couldn't see them. So they just broadcast last year's visual the audio that was going on live. And it caused all sorts of outrage.
Dissatisfaction. All kinds of dissatisfaction. Consumer dissatisfaction. But you have to realize, part of the... Let me tell you how you do this. You know how you can avoid Stanley Cups and National Football Leagues and Sidney Crosby and everything that people do? You don't have any friends. When you have friends, they'll invite you to barbecues and to this and that, and you're half obligated to do it as part of your friendship, right?
Yes.
So I encourage you, do not have any fucking friends. Be as anonymous as possible. It's the happiest condition. Roxy's discovering it. She realized, what the hell have I been doing for 20 years, going out to art events and all that? I went to fucking a headache, man. I want to stay home. It's more fun there. Where is Roxy? Is she not laughing? She get cut off again?
No, I'm here.
Okay, good, with a clear phone. But, and then you have to juggle your antisocial, not having any friends, with attempting to have friends. So what I do, I farm the friend aspect to Carolyn. She goes around and gets the friends for the friend part. You know what I mean? So we look reasonable. We don't look suspicious, because at least she's mingling. She'll go to the pool. She usually picks the time when nobody's at the pool to go there, but by doing that, she bumps into people. So Carolyn's always been the good one to keep the facade that we're not terrorists up, we're just friendly, normal people. And the first person to realize that was Sue Bone. Way back in the late 70s, after a while she started to notice what we're doing because she moved to Toronto, saw more, and she says, you guys are like urban terrorists, aren't you? She started to suspect we were terrorists because we had we were involved, we were informed, we were up to date, but we didn't have any social life other than maybe going to the McLuhan thing Monday night, and very little else.
Yeah, but Bob, now you're breaking into the cultural world on Maui, it sounds like. Now you're actually...
Not very much. I did it once, okay? What I did is I went and saw the Orange Sunshine LSD movie. And that's led me to conversations with Iona, and now I'm on a whole research project with her and her friends. I'm meeting these new people by phone who were part of the Brotherhood, who were cut out of the movie, and I'm finding the hidden ground of the fake of the movie. And it's very interesting what I'm finding out about. So that's an interesting little community is formed around the movie. And usually I'm always in the underground, so I'm working with the people who were left out of the movie. The underdog.
Iona, that's she's hooked up with Richard Allen Miller. Is that his name?
That was her former husband, and we were just talking about that. Anyway, she's not. He's an ex-husband, and he's been on George Norrie and Jeff Renz a lot, and she says it's stupid. She's not impressed with what Richard's doing now. She wasn't impressed when we met in March. When was that? March 2013 in Medford. Yes, that was when I went to Chad.
Yes.
March 2013, 3 years ago. We met there in the hotel room, and he was on and ranted at you guys while I talked to her on the sideline. So she only agreed to be in the same room with him because she wanted to meet me. But she's not involved with him anymore, but she is not impressed with Jeff Renz and Minori for having him on their show.
Yeah,
and I told her that, I said,
have you ever...
We were going through all the people, all the different experts, and how they're all insane. She was telling me about, she knows a lot of them. She tells me personal things about these people that shows they're nuts. And I said, you know how I judge whether a researcher or someone who's starting to get some kind of profile and servicing some tailored information that some part of the world wants? I test them. I say, what do you think of McLuhan? And if they have no interest in McLuhan, or if I tell them stuff they're not interested, then I know they're nuts. Because you can't be an average person and not be impressed with McLuhan if you have reasonable intelligence. You have to be, how did this guy come up with this stuff 50 years ago?
That's
you know what
true.
I mean?
Yes. Yes, that's true. That's as good a measure.
So Roxy passed the test.
Health.
Roxy passed the test. She got interested in McLuhan and she stuck with it. If she had not responded to McLuhan, we would have known that Roxy was a fucking nut and would have left her in Berlin.
Well, the interesting thing is he started to do this type of layer explanations of things nobody was aware of.
Yeah. What's the verb you said? What was your last word?
Aware.
Aware, noticing, right.
And that's why for a while he was not famous anymore.
Right.
But then, as you say, people realized the importance of what he was talking about because they started to get it and to see.
Once they got online and had a chip body, they could see the previous analog media world.
Yes, and I can see also a lot of McLuhan in William Thompson. I don't know if he recognized.
Okay, that's a very interesting story. I've told bit glimpses of it. When Nelson and I were talking to Derek, you see, McLuhan dies the last day of 1980. The University of Toronto shut down the center in June 1980. They said it was being proposed that Eric could take it over, but the university administrators, who knew a lot about McLuhan, they didn't like him, different angles, they said, no, McLuhan has a unique center. Nobody can carry on what he does. What he does is even suspect. He's half a charlatan. We can't really see. We didn't even give them we don't like his PhD students, what they come up with. So they were out to get rid of McLuhan. So they did not say Eric can take over. So it was shut down in June 60, and I've got letters that Corinne McLuhan gave me from Woody Allen and other famous people who wrote to the university in the first half of 1980 urging them not to shut down the center because McLuhan was very important. But the university was not interested in humanist values. They're just into making money as much as possible and keep the university thing going. So they didn't listen to Woody Allen. So they shut the thing down. So there was nothing, and McLuhan was alive. There was a famous story when he came with his secretary, went there, and the substitute secretary made a mess, and he's there weeping at his office, in early 1980 at the mess that they could make, that made, and he can't speak because he's got whatever that thing was called. I haven't said the word lately. He was aphasic. So no one knows how long he's going to be around, but he's dead 6 months later. So in early 81, the Kirchhoff, me, all the regular old-time McLuhan devotees, scholars like Bob Logan, Eric, all the main guys got together, and we started having the Monday night seminars in February 81 in Carr Hall on St. Mike's College. So that went on for 2 years, where the group would meet with different people, different parts of the University of Toronto campus that had a room for us to do it. Carr Hall was the main place, and that was right across from the St. Mike's Library. So for 2 years, and finally, I think people were starting to get pissed off at the university. They got to do something. The university wanted to see how much the people cared about McLuhan. Well, by early 83, it seemed to me that there was enough groundswell in Toronto that the university had to acknowledge McLuhan. They didn't want to, but they did. So they started up the center again but they called it the McLuhan Program in Culture and Technology, and it was a course granting thing. I don't think it was a PhD or major granting thing. I think you might even only get a half credit. So David Olson came in. He was someone we didn't know, but he had some experience, turned out, at Expo with Don Thiel in the 60s and related to McLuhan, but he was a semiotician. So he's the director, and Derek is the co-director or semi-director. So they run it for 3 years, and de Kerkhoff, then Olson quits. He didn't like doing McLuhan anyway, so he quits, and then Derek takes over. And then Derek goes international, and it's on another level. It's mainly Derek promoting himself and spreading around with people, artists that he liked. But from 83 to 86, when this thing got going again, they would have, we organized the Monday night meeting, me and Nelson and Barry Nevitt, and Eric ran it as a professor with courses. Now, in the fall of 81, William Irwin Thompson showed up to be a guest lecturer at the Coach House. Now, I knew a little bit about him. I hadn't read his recent book that came out that year called The Time Falling Bodies Take the Light, which was a very good book, but I hadn't read it. But I knew I had read his early books in the 70s. So I only knew a little bit about him. But he was there, and I always remember everybody was still worrying. It was Reagan time. They thought there was going to be a nuclear war between the Soviet Union and the United States. That was the mood. Star Wars was sneaking up on people, but it hadn't happened yet. And Thompson said, I'm not worried about big nuclear war between Russia and America. I'm worried about the independent states, the rogue states, the Libyas or something, which was a more avant-garde understanding of what the problem was. It wasn't the big Cold War anymore. It was decentralization. So I always remembered he said that, and I hadn't heard people say that idea much. So he was there. He knew the network. If somebody invited him there. So the next thing, when I'm with Derek de Kerkhoff in the summer of 83, organizing our Monday night thing, Derek tells me that Conrad Black, I don't know if you guys know that name, he's the Rockefeller of Canada. He was a big wheeler dealer. He inherited all the wealth of the oligarchy of Canada through his parents or something. So Derek says that Conrad Black wanted Derek out and wanted William Irwin Thompson to be in charge of the Coach House, which was crazy. No one saw that or would see how could that be. And Derek said he's going to make sure it doesn't happen. So I bring up all this to tell you that there were some people who were into McLuhan who valued Thompson, but he was an American. He hadn't taught since 1972 or 73. He'd been living in his commune, and then this church thing downtown on West 20th Street in the late 70s, and then he was living out in Crestone, Colorado, in that commune with the Lawrence Rockefeller funding. So he had his own independent scene going. He did occasionally teach at university, like as I told you, he taught in Hawaii in 85, and they didn't even know who McLuhan was in the communication department. So Thompson was known by some people. But as I started to read him in the middle 80s and read all his books, I knew he was a McLuhanite, so I wanted to talk to him about McLuhan when we met in November 93, and I was amazed he wouldn't talk about it. He said, we can't do it. The people don't know about McLuhan, and he didn't want to alienate his audience there, semi-cult audience. So I just knew that he was leaving out Thompson and McLuhan. So then he admits it in this book I'm reading from, Coming Into Being, and really he's an obvious McLuhanite, but nobody's reading his books anymore, and he can't get them reprinted, and he just disappears. Then the Internet brings him back a little bit. We're at point two where people do a few interviews with him, and some of his old tapes are broadcast, but he's nowhere. Now I'm rereading his books, and because it's relevant to ION, but I am on the side note, holy shit, man, he's really using McLuhan a lot. And Thompson told me that he gave a lecture in New York in the 70s at some place. A lot of people came. He gave his lecture, but there was a person in the audience who objected to what he was doing. It was Terry McLuhan, Mary's twin sister. She says, there's a lot of McLuhan in what you're saying. I don't know if she said it. I don't think she said it was her father. But Terry caught him, and he always remembered that she called him out on it. But she was the smartest, most intellectual McLuhan daughter. and she's lived in New York all her life, so she's up on that stuff. But Mary is the most successful corporate person. She raised millions for 25 years to give out McLuhan Awards to teachers, avant-garde teachers. So, Terry, you might want to look at her books. She's got a couple of books out. Something about the Earth, and then the one before that is Touch. It's about American Indians. Touch the Earth or something.
What I found interesting both about McLuhan and Thompson is that they both expand into the spiritual at the end. McLuhan goes into the human Catholicism, and Thompson is trying to...
He's a Buddhist.
Economic, more universal type of...
Yes. He's post-Buddhist now. He's post-Buddhist now, but he was a Buddhist in the 70s and 80s, a meditator and all that. But yeah, what's interesting is that McLuhan is an academic who can dare to be a Catholic. He's an intellectual, and everybody was shocked. Even when he died, they talked, well, I don't understand this guy. I mean, he was up on art and all this, you could say, pagan culture. Why was he a Catholic? No, self-respecting intellectual is a Catholic. So he befuddled that way. But being a Catholic would not ride in the 70s. The boomers were getting into all kinds of global religions. Thompson is the appropriate image for the 70s as a McLuhanite getting into religion or spirituality. He's like very on the level of cosmic awareness. Because his guru was David Spangler, who was the big inspiration for Findhorn. And that was a famous community. And Dave Wurster used to say Findhorn was the only people out there, New Age 60s community, that would respond to cosmic awarenesses information, would be interested. So Thompson is spiritual, but he's different than McLuhan. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, and it's also interesting that technology is expanding us, and we're trying to reconnect with something.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what.
Well, we're retrieving. We always retrieve. McLuhan said the printing press retrieves the Greek books or manuscripts. The 20th century retrieved the occult. Well, Android meme era, we retrieved the original thing, ion. And I has always said from the beginning, you're remembering that that ion is, we are source energy. So it's always a retrieval of the, quote, spiritual. And ion is the completion of it, because you're getting back to the original, real spiritual, not just the occult, not just manuscript ideas about the occult. You see, each phase retrieves something from further back.
And it's always been there.
It's also a different type of writing. Like there was this programming and binary system.
When?
With the Android meme.
Yeah, so you're saying we're retrieving a different kind of writing? Who, we are?
Yes, because with the Android meme, with computers, there was another type of writing.
Yeah, binary. Now we're writing...
programming and encrypting.
Right. With ion, it's a bigger kind of writing, including parallel worlding. You write with your being.
Right, but it was a paradox that at the same time, these expanding technologies was, in a way, separating us even more.
Yeah.
So that's why this is the 666 Android meme.
Yes, the Book of Revelation is a warning. It saw the technology in the printing press coming. It was a warning that you're going to get too fucked up. When we used to talk to Walter Fishman, the inventor of Mir, through a medium after he died, he put it real simple. He says humans went external. They developed themselves, evolved externally with things outering. He said they forgot the internal evolution. And that would be, I would say that's a limited word, but that would be the another kind of externality, going to multidimensional subtle bodies or other worlds, is what Walter meant. But yeah, we took the external, and the Book of Revelation is a warning about the external path. What will happen?
Yes, and even the Book of Revelations, Bob, is written in a satirical manner. It's a satire on what we're experiencing.
And remember, it's singular.
You gotta giggle. You gotta giggle.
It's singular. It's not the Book of Revelations with an S. It's singular.
Oh, thank you. You're right. Yes.
Yeah. People think it's the plural. book of Revelation. What were you just saying? I get distracted by the grammatical issues.
Satire. That it's written as satire.
Well, it's like McLuhan used to wonder, why did Jesus show up at the time of the alphabet? Derek has sort of developed that. What he used to talk about with women. Why did he pick that time to express his message? Well, he knew visual space was going to take over, so he had to embed it into visual space. Now, what you just said, what did you just say, Jeannie? Because it was something to do with what?
It was written as satire. Revelation.
Oh, yeah. The reason it was satire is that Spirit knew that this book was a bad scene, but they had to do it. They had to put it into book form, manuscript and then book form. And all the time they're objecting to it. And so there's a Manipian put-down of you, the reader, reading it. You're so fucked up you had to read a book about this stuff. That's the level of satire. You know what I mean? It's a Manipian satire. And they know that we're going to get past it, so, they're stuck. And that's what Mona Lisa's doing. She's sitting there looking, saying, oh, fuck, we're stuck here for another 500 years in this visual space with these fucking left hemisphere patriarchs running around thinking they're in charge. It's all going to melt away, but we've got to sit here and put up with these idiots for 500 years. That's the look in her face.
I've got to go back and listen to where, at the end, it's like one of the last chapters that when you and Carolyn figure it out and talk to Ion.
You mean the last of Revelation?
Yes, you're going like, this is satire. They're making fun of it all.
Yeah, we like that. Now we're getting back to sanity, the humanist level. I knew this was a stupid book to analyze. You had me go there for a few months, Ion. You had me believing this shit, but now it's worse than fitting its wake. It doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's a waste of fucking time, because it's only about me, and I'm doing it, so we don't need to read about it anymore.
But it was worth it, going through it all.
It was worth it, yeah.
Yeah.
It was not going to be understood until Ion came forth.
That's right.
When the time they're talking about this is the now.
Yeah.
Then that's when things.
And I cannot tell anybody about what the Bible's really about. Just make a few, genie kind of summary. They don't understand. They can't understand what you're saying. You can't even tell people what it's about. The big revelation.
No.
It's about the blood. I remember Ginny going nuts when she first started to realize it was about the changing the blood, and the Jehovah's Witnesses showed up on her, or Seventh-day Adventist, somebody showed up on her door, so she started talking to these people trying to make her a Christian, and she already was a Christian minister, but she was ionized. She was trying to explain the blood factor, and she said, these people never stopped quoting the Bible, but they shut up. They never heard of such a weird idea. And she said she got them thinking, and they walked away puzzled that it was about changing the blood. But when she realized that as a minister, it all was a big eureka. All the metaphors that she had preached and knew in the Bible content, the importance of Christ's blood, when it actually became this practical thing, which our product would change, it really made big sense to her. But it was a shocker, She was prepared.
Yes, and all these parallel world people with all their mediums, the Templars, the Masons, Napoleon, and that is really, they were trying to retrieve this technology. But it was not as they thought it was.
Right.
It was not about the relics or about gold.
Well, you see, but the thing is, they were on the radio era. You had to have the technology. This is the hidden secret that I haven't up the over Andy. Like Joyce maybe figured out, or maybe not, but I figured it out, is that you have to have the evolution of the extensions of our media when we go the outer path before you can get to the punchline. You had to have the extension of radio, and then of the central nervous system with TV, and then the computer, and then the Android meme phases, and then everybody able to watch the 911 on that one day. The whole world can watch it. It had to be imploded. And then Ion could show up. We had to go through this technological cycle. So everybody could sort of correct for their era of technology. The Nazis were correct for radio, but TV was sneaking up on them, and they wouldn't be correct once TV came in.
Yes, and it's interesting, for example, how the Templars create credit, and Napoleon was against the paper money, but actually, in a way, he helped.
He had to do it. The management always was. The management always was trapped. We have to go forward with this stuff, even though I don't know what I'll be, what kind of power I'll have, but I can't stop it. And yet, in Napoleon's time, he could stop it a little bit, right? Hadn't taken over yet. But it didn't work for him, according to you.
Yeah.
Wow, what is Trump's war?
Yeah, are you reading a headline?
No, I'm anticipating.
What is Trump's war? Let's all remember, for the first year of administration, everybody just play me laughing my head off when I first heard Trump. Remember that great thing I did 3 months ago, where I'm talking about Trump and listening to him talk. We were playing, and I'm dying laughing at what he was doing.
Oh, yes.
I'd never seen it before.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Me laughing at Trump at the way he was talking. I couldn't talk. I was laughing so much. That should be the national anthem in the Trump era. Bob laughing at first exposure to Trump.
Why the Nazis were into the race, the DNA, and
well, you know why? It's important, Rox, you know that always, up till now, a medium was pointing things. Inventors, the Nazis were inspired by the mediums they had. The mediums told them what was really important. And everybody all through history had mediums.
And
Marie Antoinette.
Up till now, because
up to now, everybody had a faulty medium, but they all had a medium which was pretty good for their era. Marie Antoinette was very powerful in the oligarchy because she had something speaking to her in the fireplace. So she knew what was going on and would stun all the princes and kings with her knowledge. See, everybody in history who becomes a big deal cheated by having access to non-physical in some way. But it would be a watered-down non-physical. It wasn't ion. It wasn't the perfect non-physical, but it was some leaking through of something, you know?
Yeah. Now good. We have the real non-physical, and we're not sure about anything.
What did you say, Roxy?
The only one that had, like, a bigger understanding of all these things was Saint Germain and the Chinese and the mountain. They sort of saw...
They saw a lot, and they were in charge secretly the whole time, the last 1,000 years.
Yes, because they can go back and forth in time.
Right, now listen to this. You know, Thompson talks about, Carol was mentioning it last week, when the Chinese Armada, they had 27,000 ships. Each ship was as big as a fucking ocean liner or something. A huge Armada. And they go out, and they go over as far as Africa, and they're looking for cultures to dominate and get tax tribute from. And it becomes too expensive doing it. It doesn't work. So they retreat. And Thompson talks about, well, we'd all be speaking Chinese if they had gotten with the new Atlantic technological landscape, the oceanic, he calls it. If they hadn't have retreated into the old geometric mentality, they would have been in charge now. But you know what? Maybe they knew where it was all going to lead, and they just waited it out. They didn't retreat out of paranoia. They retreated because their mediums, or whatever they had, saw what was going to happen. Oh, why should we go to Africa? Let's just go to the United States and invest in the United States. That's going to be the country that's going to take over. They may have seen all that. So that's what we tell Thompson.
Thing.
What?
Do the Walmart.
Yeah, do the Walmart? Did you say?
Walmart.
Walmart was the company that got the thing going with Mao Zedong. Is that what you're referring to, with Hillary Clinton's father?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's right. Do the Walmart. And so it would be interesting to have Thompson on here and see what he would say to that idea. Now, he did a rare thing in around 2000 at the Open Center in New York City, which is the New Age Center, and he gave a talk. So me and Mark Solomon went to it. And we were telling him, before the thing talked, we were talking to him, and we were teasing him because he didn't know that, who was it, that Nietzsche faked his insanity and went silent on purpose. So we were quoting our discussions, me and Mark, with the Evergreens. And so we were telling Evergreen knowledge, and he was looking at us saying, who are you guys? What do you mean? I'd never heard of that idea. And he was always up on the latest spiritual stuff, so we caught him with new information. And he didn't know what to say, and he didn't say much, but he'd probably be forced. He'd be like that if he was here hearing what we're saying now.
Yes, and then there's the aspect of the Chinese retrieving immediately the whole of the Twin Towers, taking all the...
Yes, they took the materials of the towers, yeah. It was theirs. They owned it. They gave it to Rockefeller through a portal or something. But, there was another thought, I forget, Thompson, the Evergreens. You have to realize the Evergreens were a fantastic medium, and you hear them in the Bobfest archives. You have to be impressed with what they do, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the Evergreens were really good. They almost made it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about them all night, too, related to this conversation. They talked about the great mathematic.
Great mathematic, yes. That's really important. And they also, I think I played it, they got the history of the oligarchy from 1400 to now. That's a really good session.
Yeah, but Bob, they said they didn't even know, or the Boudians didn't know the origin of the great mathematic.
Right. Nobody knew where they came from. Well, that's because there was no beginning. Yeah. It's interesting how Ion goes a bit further than the Evergreens. And the Evergreens are very good at almost academic explaining of things. Very rational, very balanced, very original, and they fill all the questions in. But they ain't wild maniacs like Ion.
No, but I see it was important for you to have these different stages of apprehension.
Yeah. No, really, it was important to go through the Evergreens.
It was a big training to deal with Ion.
That's right. I was getting in shape. I started off in lightweight, then I became middleweight, then I became heavyweight. And remember, Carolyn slept with Muhammad Ali's T-shirt for like 15 years. I was sleeping with the heavyweight champion of the world, man. I was getting ready to be the new Cassius Clay.
What? I haven't heard that one.
Oh, you don't? Ed Seaton, the guy who got us to Maui, he and I and Carolyn, we always went away in the summer so she could take a break from her college life in Halifax. So we went down to one of the main beaches down in Virginia. What's that famous one down there? We drove all the way down the coast.
Atlantic City?
No, way down. Virginia. Something
Ocean
Beach.
City.
Virginia. No. What?
Ocean City?
Ocean City, yeah.
No, I think it's I don't know. It's way down in Virginia. Is Ocean City, isn't that part of New Jersey?
No, Virginia Beach?
Virginia Beach it might have been. No, that's where Casey was. There's somewhere around Virginia Beach there's a famous there. Anyways, we were driving down there because the summer before we drove across the United States and went to the reunion of Dave Worcer's Cosmic Awareness scene. That was in August 74. They called it the August Affair. And that's where Shockley's gang attacked Dave.
Do you know what year that was?
Oh, it was August 75. We went down to Virginia Beach.
They went there, but it was in the 80s, maybe 82.
No. But anyway, so we went across the states in 74, so we did again. We went down the East Coast, and on the way we got wind that in Pennsylvania, Muhammad Ali had a camp, and you could visit it. I don't know how we found this out. So we drove over, found it on the map, and found it somewhere out in the suburbs or in the woods. And we went there, and there he was. And he was watching Sugar Ray, that little kid who was big a few years later. Sugar Ray something.
Sugar Ray
Leonard. Leonard.
Oh, who's saying that? Is that you, Susanna? Your voice is a bit different. Okay. Yeah. So we watched him for a little while, and then we got introduced to Muhammad Ali, and he invited us into his home to watch a TV show, a TV special that he had just made where he's host of it. So me, Ed, and Carol sitting on the couch beside him.
Wow.
He's like in a chair beside the couch, and I'm as a McLuhanite, I'm watching him watch himself. You know what I mean? I was a bit behind him.
Oh,
like his
cool.
chair was slightly ahead of me, so I could look at him on an angle and still watch the TV. So I noticed how intently he watched himself. No, he didn't. There were lots of jokes in that. He didn't crack one smile. He just watched, very judging it, how he was doing. And so he watched it with him, and that was fun. And then he went out and he had to deal with his wife. And the next thing to observe was he went on about how he's the most famous person in the world. There's highways named after him in Egypt. I guess he was the most famous. He talked about the Muslim world, how they all knew about him. So the whole world knew about him. And he was going on, and I got a sense he's probably said this speech to everybody 100 times. So his wife is sitting there in the car waiting to go, and she's pissed. And she's just sitting there like rolling her eyes almost, like pissed out. Oh, fuck, I got to listen to Cassius go through this again about how he's a fucking Muslim or something, and he's known by everybody. He's a big fake. He's a big fucking liar. And anyways, I noticed that about her. She wasn't very happy. And 3 years later, an article in People magazine, she divorced him. So I saw that problem he had with her, and I don't know if he cared, but he finally got in the car and drove off, and we stayed overnight there. I think it was free, and Carol was given a T-shirt with it said Muhammad Ali camp or something on it. She slept with that T-shirt for the next, 15 years. I slept beside that fucking T-shirt for 15 years. That's all she would wear when she went to bed. And so here I was with the heavyweight champion of the world, and I was going to become the new heavyweight champ.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
it was pretty remarkable sitting there, being with him, watching him watch himself. Not many people get to do that, to watch some celebrity judge himself, his TV image, before it's shown,
Especially,
the interesting, and then he got Parkinson's disease. I wonder
so Nelson Thaw met a guy. He was a black guy in one of the James Bond movies. He's one of the evil guys in one of the famous James Bond movies. And then he goes and he's a detective or something in Homicide. You might have seen Homicide in the 80s. You remember a TV show called Homicide? A black guy, forget his name. He didn't like what was happening in the States. So this would be 92 or so. So he took his kids and moved to Toronto and put them into the Canadian educational system, and Nelson met him somehow. So we met him, and he told us that he was a close friend of Muhammad Ali, and Ali faked his Parkinson's disease so he didn't have to socialize with people, go around sign autographs and that he could keep it to a minimum.
Really?
Seriously?
That's what he said, seriously. And he knew these people because he grew up in Harlem. He was a famous black actor. I could look up his name, but he played whatever black demon was in one of the Bond movies. Look that up.
That's a pretty hard sickness to fake, isn't it?
I don't know. This is what he claimed. I didn't look into it. I could have asked the Evergreens maybe whether that was true. Let's see. Life on the Street TV series 93 to 99. Homicide.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's Yaphet Kotto. Kotto. Let's see who he was in Alien 1979. He was in Live and Let Die 1973. Is that a Bond movie? Live and Let Die.
Yeah, that's a Bond.
Mm-hmm. Right, Roger Moore, Jane Seymour. So, he had a pretty good career in Hollywood. And then he got alienated with the Bush era. He said he had a friend who was in the CIA he grew up with in Harlem. And at the beginning of, I guess, maybe George Bush's presidency, the first guy, he came to him, he said, I'm leaving Canada. You don't want to know who's taking over the United States. And he meant, the CIA colleague, friend of his, knew who it was taking over. And he said, I'm getting out of the country. These guys are bad. And that influenced Yaphet to leave the United States. Now, that would get into the Bolshevik-Rockefeller battle that Beater talks about. So this guy became, where the Bolshevik, KGB, whatever they were, taking over the Pentagon. It wasn't going to be pretty.
In the 80s.
Late 80s, early 90s, yeah. Well, I mean, they took over in the late 70s, but this guy is complaining to Yaphet maybe in 89, 90 when Bush became president. Before
we thought capitalism won, but actually communism.
Yeah, communism won. And it's a software communism. Now, Roxy's own father probably knows some of these people because he was brought to Washington in 82 when the shift from the Rockefeller gang shifted to the Bolshevik gang.
Yes, and when we went to China, we had to wait
her father was arrested.
When we checked in the hotel, they were interrogating us for a long time.
What was the word? Interviewing?
No, my father was being interrogated, and they were saying, "What did you do from this year to this year?" And he said,
"Wow,
whatever." And they said, "That's not true. You went to do this."
And you witnessed this? Was this in the hotel room? How did you witness this?
Yes, when we were checking in, and he said, "Well, why did you ask me? You know better than me."
You know better. You know more about me. That's what Zappa said to me. Zappa said that in the interview, me and Bob Murray. He says, well, I asked the question, well, you know my interviews better than I do.
And then we were not allowed to go on our own. We had somebody all the time, and we were not allowed to go in certain parts of the city.
Yeah, now here's Roxy. She's only 68. You're 14 years old. Is this 82? Is this when it happened?
No, China was 2008.
2008? Oh, geez, you're an adult. Anyways, you guys were looking forward to China. What did you think while sitting in the room and watching your father be interrogated? Did it frighten you? Did it puzzle you? What were your emotions?
No, I thought it was normal. That
Normal. Yeah, it's the tough life of being a princess among the oligarchy. There's always competing empires interrupting you, right?
No, because, for example, if somebody has a job that has some responsibility, for example, we knew my father was not allowed to go away. There was a limit of the range of distance he can go, and he had to be always available, reachable.
Oh, for his own country.
Yes.
So you've always known that he was tied to responsibilities.
Yes, so that when they were asking him all these things, it's like normal. They had to check.
And how was he during the interview? Just indifferent? He just put up with it?
No, we were having fun because it was like too much. It wasn't really.
How's that for an experience, guys? Watching your father go through a CIA interrogation by the Chinese.
Did you say a CIA interrogation by the Chinese?
Well, it's a complex, intense. I'm saying CIA. It's intense governmental interrogation of the guy. Be fucked up, they could arrest him. Maybe
Chinese.
Yeah, these are Chinese, man. Their superiority complex is way up there. We're just scum to them. So this guy was a scum Mexican.
At the end, everybody's the same. I mean,
What happened at the end?
Yeah, at the end, China is America. They control the debt.
Oh. Wow.
So what is the difference between China and the mountain?
The mountain are the spiritual elite.
In China?
Yeah. They're like, probably half of them are these ascended people that never died. Been around for 10,000 years or something.
They're those that always knew then.
Yeah. They knew everything all along.
Okay,
and they're friends of us. They're our buddies. They like us.
And Trump.
They don't like Trump. I don't know what they like on that level.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
But when Iron references China, he makes a point of saying not the government. and not
right.
people.
He's talking about the mountain. And we weren't allowed to talk about the mountain. You don't hear that talked about in the James Martinez era.
Mm-mm.
It's only lately, last year, a couple of years, he allowed us to say it, talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you just say it, like you're not allowed to say that, and then you just said.
No, I wouldn't say that we weren't allowed to. And we have direct communication with them.
Oh, and when you talk about China owning the United States or owning the World Trade
That's the elite.
That's the elite, not the government.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the government. The JW's always said, and Ion, I think, says that the government is useless. They're just hanging on. I don't know what. They're just like keeping the idea of government going, the propaganda of their institution, but they don't have any power. The people don't pay attention to the government as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yes, and all the cell phones are made in China, so they were very important in making this Android meme
Right.
Become an environment. And
yeah.
And it was important. They knew about the real meaning of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
The real name
So
of the what?
What?
Of the apocalypse.
Apocalypsis.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the word in Greek.
Yeah, she says the original word.
Wow, okay.
So now we're doing this all for Zappa. This all connects to Zappa, you know. So when Thompson is saying that in this era humans start to interact with the angelic or celestial intelligences, that's a good enough word for the ionic effect. And I'm saying that he's saying these new musical, mathematical mentalities or paradigms or environments are what we're going to start interacting with. I say Zappa's music communicates that.
Yes, and the fact that he claimed to be atheist.
Atheist, right. Well, he didn't.
He was, actually, the thing is, he was not satisfied with religion, of course. He had another concept of the big note and
yeah, a spiritual concept. I mean, in United Mutations in the literature, he goes, "Is God ESP?" That's a good statement. Garrett Dean used to say that he thought that a psychic experience was death, was ego death. That was a spiritual thing, whatever form it took on you. And that's what. Oh, here's Alyssa. Maybe she has a lot to say. And Daniel Libby to report in about the follies in Toronto. But so Zappa, Gail talks about Frank being very, quote, spiritual in his Dobbstown way. I mean, in the interview, we ask him, why did you say to this, said something about spirituality, and he says, well, I'm not going to talk about that with some teenager who writes for a pop magazine. So he kept it to himself, his dimensional stuff. What?
I think he could not even formulate that. The thing he somehow knew.
Right.
The connection with frequency.
Right. Well,
he could not explain what Ion is always talking about, frequency. And
when you knew Zappa, when you interacted with him, he was the perfect up-to-date idea of what a spiritual person would be. Very humble, very generous with his time. You pay attention to it. This is what, his secretary, Pauline Butcher, writes a book, and she was just a person hired in London in 1967 to type something from a secretary pool, and then she started talking to him at the hotel, and he actually listened to her. In 1967, a man didn't listen to women. It was very rare. Like, they weren't expected to. Women were not expected to be listened to, and she couldn't believe this guy would listen to her ideas. And that's when she really got infatuated with him. And that, to me, is a spiritual act by Zappa. He respected her.
He got Mona Lisa's attention.
Yeah. And the way he talked, he was very, very observant and gentle, and, he was a spiritual, the way I think a person is. the Evergreen said in 1980 that he was one of the most rational persons on the planet. Rational was a compliment.
I think he was engaging both the left side and the right side.
Yeah, he was in the corpus callosum, which a balanced person would do in the second half of the 20th century. And, here's this guy that has a ridiculous image of a madman, atheist, secular, because he formed a church called CASH, Church of American Secular Humanism, just to counter the Christian guys taking over education.
Yeah, it seemed like he naturally. It seemed like he naturally played like anti-environment for himself. Like that's part of the balancing of the different brains. It seemed like he naturally understood how to play the different bodies against each other and kind of be above all that.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's why I liked him. He was a role model how to be. I felt I was that way, and so we were friends because we knew how to be.
Yeah.
And, and you hear statements from Gail. He had a certain level of Bob megalomania. She said, when after he died, she said, well, he would notice that. He would write something, and it would show up in the world somewhere. So he was aware of him doing something in his environment, and it would be reflected somewhere in the world, usually in the news. The first person I ever met who did that was Dave Worster, who would explain world events due to what was going on between him and his lover, Vern. But what was going on between them would determine what would happen in the world.
I was thinking that Zappa named his band Mothers of Invention. So
he called them mothers. They were called mothers.
Yes.
And because that meant motherfuckers, the company wouldn't accept it. So you got to add something else. So he had of invention, which was a great follow-up. That has a good meaning too.
Yeah.
And he will dressed as a woman also.
Right.
And I think it has to do with the fact, like, Leonardo incorporated in the Mona Lisa the traits of men and women.
Yeah.
Like his assistant and the other woman. But because he's saying we have both sexes and we have to use both parts of the brain. And I asked Guyon if the Mona Lisa was Isis, and he said yes.
He said yes, it was Isis.
Yes, it's the archetype.
Yeah.
Like that's why James Joyce uses Isis too, as the archetype of women.
Okay, so here's an interesting point. That's
the mother of invention.
Well, what? Is Isis the mother of invention? Is that what you're saying?
It's the archetype of the mother of invention.
The archetype of woman.
Right. Okay, you've added to a point I was trying to make. It hadn't said it this way. Cosmic awareness says Rai created this world, running away from something in the plane of essence, and then Isis was sent into this world that Rai created and agreed to keep it going by bearing children and keeping the human thing going, with a longer-range agenda of bringing Rai back to the plane of essence in some way. And then that happened in 1967. So that's what I'm describing. Mona Lisa is Isis looking at Rai and waiting to bring him back to the plane of essence. That's a simple summary statement of it. What?
The war in heaven, one of the reasons was that Lucifer wanted to sit at the right of men, and they say, no, that's the place for our son, for their generations.
Right.
For their children. And that was the reason of this big war in heaven.
Well, that's all mixed up. See, that's the humans thinking that's Rai's version of the Bible. Rai's saying, it's important to keep this dimension going, so humans are important. We must allow them to regenerate themselves. And Lucifer objected to that. So Lucifer's the cool guy. He says, we object to this Rai taking over and demanding humans to be in charge. And so Lucifer says, I'm going to become a woman and I'm going to seduce you back here. So you give up this project. So, yeah, woman is Lucifer. Not in the evil sense, but as Isis. And when the left hemisphere...
That's why the Mona Lisa in the Prado has the 666.
Now, you keep mentioning 666.
We were always blamed for the fall.
Right, but that was... the woman set that up.
For the separation.
Thompson does a good description of this phase. When you move out of the matriarchal societies, which regular anthropology, when he wrote these books 20 years ago, didn't agree with some of the feminist interpreters of the power of the matriarchy, but Thompson thinks it was true. He goes with the feminist view. And so when the visual space and writing started to come in, 3500 BC or so, that's when the patriarchy started to take over. And he describes the epic, like the Gilgamesh epic, and some of the other Enuma Elish epics is about the hero, the male hero, killing Isis, killing the goddess of the matriarchy. And the whole thing of women being evil was due to the shift from right hemisphere to left hemisphere, brought in around 3500 BC. So he tracks it through all the different ancient documents, manuscripts, stories about the getting rid of the 6,000-year or so matriarchal phase, agricultural phase, Neolithic phase, and moving into the civilizational, religious phase. That's why women got put down, and it's right in the mythology. The hero Gilgamesh is celebrated for killing Isis. This is what people were taught.
And that is how men justify their supremacy.
Right.
And
their fragile supremacy. Now, the Isis let this happen, knew that we're going to have to go through visual space, and then the Renaissance, and then kinetic space, and then tactility. The Isis knew all this was happening. That's what that look is. Mona Lisa is saying, yeah, we're stuck here for another 500 years. Yeah, we got to put up with this fucking shit until we get the electric environment working for us again.
Yes, and you explained that in this video, I think, from Babylon to Babylon. You explain
that's it.
The Mona Lisa sitting and waiting.
That's a good documentary title. From Babylon to Babylon.
I like that. All the period Mona Lisa is looking at men.
Yeah.
So everything
relaxing and allowing.
Yeah, she was relaxing and allowing. What were you saying, somebody?
Well, Roxy had said, I think, in the video, or maybe even tonight, that just how special that painting is in comparison to other works of art. But that doesn't meet the definition, McLuhan's definition of art.
No, not anymore. Then. No.
Well, yes, because Leonardo is making really not only a work of art, but a work of technology. He put everything. Also, I mean, he made a photograph. He put a lot of knowledge about constellations, and he put all these things that we can only see with the right technology. So it was not only the perfect aesthetic composition and the sfumato technique that is really nobody could ever.
Yeah, it was technological, is what Roxy's saying. But McLuhan wouldn't be analyzing it on that level. It
was his major work as an engineer, as a scientist, and as an artist. He wanted to make a...
What was the second word you said?
As an artist and as an engineer.
And scientist, engineer, artist.
Right,
now, McLuhan writes in Blast, Wyndham Lewis makes fun of Leonardo, the archetype. And McLuhan either adds to it or Lewis says it about how Leonardo, the Mona Lisa snuck out of the Louvre years ago. It wasn't there anymore. It snuck out. And there's The artistic creativity that was represented by Mona Lisa went somewhere else in a different form. I'll have to try to find that and read you the quote. So that Lewis was, part of being the new artist of the 20th century is recognizing that the Leonardo hardware genius didn't apply anymore to the software world. That's why you had the 19th century of so-called artistic geniuses calling themselves the pre-Raphaelites. That's like pre-Leonardo. They were going back. They felt there was something back before the Renaissance that we lost and we should retrieve. And then that's the retrieval of the occult all through the 20th century. Now, McLuhan's not impressed with the retrieval. He's explaining why it's happening. And so if McLuhan was a dumb Catholic, as most people will say, an insightful Catholic, but just a Catholic, then Ion saying that McLuhan was a parallel worlder doesn't apply. But if Ion's right, then McLuhan's way beyond what is the image of him, and what Thompson spells out is something McLuhan would have known if he was a parallel worlder. But McLuhan doesn't in his writings, so Thompson is the best, more up-to-date, what he calls post-religious spirituality. That's what he's for. Post-religious. And when he does the 5 phases, the first victim is the animal, and the society is run by shamanism. The second phase, the victim is man, and it's run by matriarchy. The third phase is the victim is woman, and you're moving into an era that's run by religion. Then the industrial phase is the victim is religion, and art and science are the ground. And then in the planetary phase, the mind is the victim, and music is the complex, which is exactly McLuhan's point. We live entirely by music when you get into the planetary culture phase. And then Thompson is trying to predict something past that, which he calls a noetic polity, and that is the Zappa-esque Android meme. Remember, the Android meme chart is all geared around Frank. Bob's tiny note. That's a takeoff on the big note.
Yes, and it's very interesting that McLuhan said, you will be able to change your blood, and the fan club, Zappa fan club, is called United Mutations.
Yeah, United Mutations. And if you want to get a clue on Frank's spirituality, read the novel by Theodore Sturgeon called More Than Human. That was his favorite book that he would talk about. So read that, which is about these misfit, this psychic, this 6 little people, including a little baby. Matter of fact, let's just go on. The wiki, they'll probably have a summary of the novel. What'd you say?
First, what's the title again of the book?
More Than Human. See, that's an ionic point. Yeah, we need to emphasize this. This is the next topic.
Yes, maybe we can read from the book if you have it.
Yeah, we'll look up the Wikipedia summary of it. I'm sure they'll provide something.
Okay,
so
let
Theodore
me just say
Sturgeon.
something quick. So Da Vinci and McLuhan, if they were parallel worlders, could have been using current technologies to express future technologies.
Yeah, they could have been using what?
Like McLuhan, like Da Vinci could have been using the current technology of painting to express the future technology of photography on some level, as McLuhan used Catholicism.
He made a stereoscopic 3D image.
3D image.
We could not. I mean, we didn't have the technology to overlap both Mona Lisas until now, and how could he know?
Right. Remember,
angle and
Gene, McLuhan used Finney's Wake to say that Finney's Wake had every technology that was ever going to be invented was in Finney's Wake. So that's saying what you're saying. He used present technologies like Finney's Wake to show the future. Okay, so here's More Than Human. And it's a very important year. 1953 is an important year. More Than Human is a 1953 science fiction novel by Theodore Sturgeon, who lived, born in 1918, died in 1985. Okay, so he was Carolyn's favorite science fiction author. We've got a whole bunch of books. I never read any of them, but she's read them all. It says, It is a fix-up of his previously published novella called Baby is 3, which was made up of 2 parts. First part, The Fabulous Idiot. Second part, Morality. So it's a fix-up of his previously published novella, Baby is 3, with 2 parts written specially for the novel. It won the 1954 International Fantasy Award, which was also given to works in science fiction. It was additionally nominated in 2004 for a Retro Hugo Award for the year 1954. Sci-fi critic and editor David Pringle included it in his book Science Fiction: The 100 Best Novels. I'm looking at a picture of the 1953 paperback cover, and geez, you should see it. It's a hand. Zappa always showed the hand. It's a hand with a face in it, sort of maybe drowning or just reaching. But there's the Zappa hand right in the cover. Okay.
Yes, and that's what Diane always says is in the palm of your hand.
Yes. Yeah. Are you looking at the cover, at the picture?
No, but...
Yeah, it's got a face. It's like Baby. The Baby is 3 face. Remember, Joyce in Phoenix Wake says gray at 3. And McLuhan says, yeah, that's because, the kids have so much information overload. They're 3 at 3. They've processed their ancient people compared to previous generations. So Simon & Schuster published a graphic novel.
200 years every
12 months.
Every 12 months.
You could call it an annum.
Maybe it's now faster, right?
Yes. Yep. Well, there's not even any time. Everything's already happened. We've arrived. Simon & Schuster published a graphic novel version of More Than Human in 1978 titled Heavy Metal Presents Theater Surgeons More Than Human. It was illustrated by Alex Nino and scripted by Doug Munch. Okay. The plot introduction says, the novel concerns the coming together of 6 extraordinary people with strange powers who are able to blesh, and blesh is a portmanteau of blending and meshing. B-L-E-S-H, blesh. They were able to blesh their abilities together. Now, you see many of that kind of stuff in comic books, right, and TV shows today. 6 interesting, unique people meshing their abilities. In this way, they are able to act as one organism. They progress toward a mature Gestalt consciousness called the Homo Gestalt, the next step in the human evolution. Now, remember, this is Zappa's favorite novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it says the first part of the novel, so I guess it was in 2 parts. So he took his story, Baby 3, and put it into 2 parts. The first part of the novel, The Fabulous Idiot, narrates the birth of the Gestalt. In the beginning, we are introduced to the world of Lone, L-O-N-E. All right, Lone Ranger, Lone. Referred to as the Idiot, in quotes, idiot. A 25-year-old male with a telepathic ability who lives on the street, so he's homeless. He knows he can make people do what he wants them to, but has never experienced real human connection. One day he encounters Evelyn Q, K-E-W, an innocent woman who has been completely sheltered by her domineering father. She is the first person he is mentally and physically connected with. Evelyn's father finds out about the relationship and kills Evelyn and himself. During this incident, Lone barely escapes a beating from the father. Bleeding and nearly dead, he is found and then adopted by the Prods, P-R-O-D-D-S, a poor farming couple, and lives with them for about 7 years. When Mrs. Prod becomes pregnant, the couple are about to ask Lone to leave, but he makes his departure appear to be his own idea. Lone builds a shelter in the forest and is soon joined by 3 runaway children. Janie, an 8-year-old with a telekinetic gift, and the twins Bonnie and Beanie, who cannot speak but possess the ability to teleport. Lone returns to the farm to find Mrs. Prod has died after giving birth to a mongoloid baby. Mongoloid in quotes. Lone adopts the baby, who has a phenomenal mental capacity and thinks almost like a computer. So back earlier, he is found and adopted by the Prods, a poor farming couple, lives with them for 7 years. When Mrs. Prod becomes pregnant, the couple are about to ask Lone to leave, but he makes his departure appear to be his own idea. So he leaves on his own. He just leaves. But then he's going to be nearby in the forest. The second part, so the kid, the mongoloid, thinks like a computer. Together, Lone, Janie, the twins, and baby, so that's 5, right? And it's supposed to be 6. Lone and Janie, the twins, and baby is 5. form what will be later called the homogestalt. Prod's old truck is always getting stuck in the mud, and when Lone asks Baby for a solution, Baby helps Lone build an anti-gravity generator. Now, that Baby is ion. And I'm Lone. I've just been telling you today, how you succeed in life is don't have any friends. Right? I was just telling you, I was advocating the lone philosophy. I mean, you can have friends, but you don't want to be too involved, so you don't have to go to funerals and weddings.
Yeah, our friends are freaks.
Yes. And so they installed the anti-gravity generator in Prod's truck, only to find that Prod has left for Pennsylvania. So I guess the guy took the truck. Now, this is in that early 50s when the UFOs were being seen and people were fantasizing about anti-gravity. So Sturgeon is making a novel around some of these themes. The second part of the novel is called Baby is 3, which occurs several years after The Fabulous Idiot. Jerry Thompson, a street urchin who has grown up in abusive institutions, is possibly sociopathic. He consults a psychiatrist trying to piece his memory back together. Jerry ran away from the institution and was taken in by Lone. Lone was killed in an accident, and Jerry subsequently became the leader of the Gestalt. So it's still 5. Jerry's the 6th person, but Lone dies, so then Jerry takes over. But that's your 6 people, I guess. Lone had instructed the kids to seek out Evelyn's sister Alicia after his death. They were educated and fed under her care. Soon, however, Jerry learned that domestication and normalization had weakened their Gestalt. He killed Alicia, and the group returned to living alone in the woods. Now, what? So Jerry ran away. So maybe Jerry's young, a street urchin. He consults a psychiatrist. Lone's killed. Jerry became the leader of the Gestalt. So I'm assuming Jerry's young, and he's taken care of by this woman, Alicia. He kills Alicia, and the group returned to living alone in the woods. So you know what? This is a 5-6 dialectic. You get 5 people, but the 6th, the hexatic, is lurking. Okay? You get that?
Mm-hmm.
If anything, Jerry's telepathic abilities are stronger than Lone's. His amnesia was caused by Alicia's having accidentally transmitted her memories to his mind when they first met, triggered by her strong emotional reaction to hearing the words, "Baby is 3." So Alicia is Evelyn's sister, so she's killed, but before that she reacts to Jerry's abilities. And she transmitted her memories to his mind when they first met, triggered by her strong emotional reaction to hearing the words "Baby is 3." Jerry learned about her entire life, including her past relationship with Lone, in a split second. So how could, where is Lone? He met Evelyn originally. And then I guess he got involved with the sister somehow. After being helped by the psychiatrist, Jerry erases the man's memory of him. Who's the man? He learned about her entire life, including her past relationship with Lone, in a split second. After being helped by the psychiatrist, Jerry erases the psychiatrist's memory of him. So a lot of stuff that's in later TV science fiction, right? So this is laying it out. So then the third and concluding part of the novel is morality. What did they say? 2 parts? 2 parts. Oh, they call it The Fabulous Idiot and Morality are the 2 parts. But this is The Fabulous Idiot. Second part is added. Baby is 3. And it becomes 3 parts. And third part is called Morality. The third and concluding part of the novel is morality. Again, it occurs several years after the previous part. Lieutenant Hip Barrows, Barrows, Hip stands for Hippocrates. Lieutenant Hip Barrows is a gifted engineer who worked for the U.S. Air Force until the incident which led to his incarceration, first in an insane asylum, then in jail. So he's put in an insane asylum, then he's in jail. Janie, now an adult, befriends him and helps him regain his health. He slowly remembers what had happened. He discovered some odd effects on an anti-aircraft range. Practice shells fired in a certain area were all duds. Barrows does magnetic tests and finally discovers the anti-gravity machine still on the rusted-out old truck on the nearby farm. So they lost the anti-gravity machine, and it's still on the truck on the nearby farm. what is this? Did he do this before they meet him? So I'm not sure. He slowly remembers what happened. He discovered so he's telling Jane he discovered some odd effects on an anti-aircraft range. Practice shells fired in a certain area were all duds. Barrows does magnetic tests and finally discovers the anti-gravity machine. Jerry knows of Hip's investigation and poses as a common soldier assisting Hip, then launching the anti-gravity device into space and stopping Hip from saving it. So Jerry's all conflicted here. He then mentally attacks Hip to make him look insane, driving him to a mental breakdown and amnesia. Jerry does this because Baby has told him that if the anti-gravity was discovered, it would lead either to a terrible war or to the complete collapse of the world economy. So that's Bob. That's Bob, yeah, that's our situation.
Causing all these situations.
Right, so Jerry is me? Yeah, that's Jerry's fucking me in the intelligence world, killing people occasionally under necessity, for good reasons. So Jerry knows, so Hip has a device. So he has to get rid of the device, sending it out to space, because it'll cause a collapse. So Jerry's a bit of a, Baby is a mediacologist and says, this is going to cause a problem. Remember, everybody say the final war is over some incredible technology. Now, George Reynolds, the main supporter of the Evergreens, often said that if there was a ET contact, it would collapse the economy. Because everybody would say, oh, shit, they're going to bring in all kinds of new technologies, and what I'm investing in is not going to work. So you can't just have a simple contact and then announce it. Jerry, okay, so it sounds like Jerry was investigating this guy and made him have the breakdown. I'm not sure what the sequence there. Did Jerry, after Hip has been insane and left jail, he's out and Janie meets him, they make him healthy. Does Jerry interact then, or did he do it before? Because it sounds like he makes Hip insane again. Jerry knows of Hip's investigation and poses as a common soldier assisting Hip, then launching the anti-grav, they call anti-grav, into space and stopping Hip from saving it. He then mentally attacks Hip to make him look insane, driving him to a mental breakdown and amnesia. Jerry does this because Baby's told him that if the anti-grav was discovered, it would lead either to a terrible war or to the complete collapse of the world economy. Jerry is determined to drive Hip permanently insane. Hip confronts Jerry and becomes the last part of the gestalt, its conscience. So I guess Hip joins the other five. That's where you get six again. Right?
Yeah.
So that seems to be the end of it. But that's Frank getting ready to take over the world. Ironically.
It's interesting that the idea of the recording that this woman downloads from, like the soul.
Now, wait a minute. Where's that? What part was that?
When, before she's killed by the father because he meets this guy and they have both these...
I'm trying to find that. Janie? Who is that? I'm trying to find that part. I forget.
Yeah, he found this woman that downloads her whole memories in a second before she's killed by the father because he found out they have a relationship.
Where is that?
It's at the beginning. But there is this idea of the...
No, I want to get that. We have to figure out what you're talking about. Evelyn finds out about the relationship between Lone and Evelyn. The father finds out about the relationship and kills Evelyn and himself.
Yeah, Evelyn is the one that downloads her memories to him before.
I don't see that being said. Where is that said?
Yeah, it was said.
During this incident, Lone barely escapes a beating from the father. Bleeding, nearly dead, he's found and then adopted by the prods. Okay.
I thought it was Alicia.
Yeah, who's Alicia?
I think she
Lone
wasn't she the one that downloaded?
Yeah. Lone had instructed the kids to seek out Evelyn's sister Alicia after his death. They were educated and fed under her care, so they were living with Alicia. Soon, Jerry learned that domestication and normalization had weakened their gestalt. He kills Alicia. There's nothing about download. Oh, yeah, what you have here, Jerry's telepathic abilities are stronger than Lone's. His amnesia, did Jerry have amnesia? Jerry, I guess, gets amnesia. It was caused by Alicia's having accidentally transmitted her memories to his mind when they first met, triggered by her strong emotional reaction to hearing the words "baby is 3." He learned about her entire life, including her past relationship with Lone. So she worked Alicia with Lone. All right, that's what you're referring to, is Alicia.
Yeah, so who was that? Okay. But, well, it's the idea of the record that you can download, and then you can also erase memories. So
yeah.
For Zappa, that will be very interesting to have this type of recordings that you can remix like music.
Yeah. So the point is that all these psychic things, like Gail claimed that she was psychic. She said she was almost prophetic. We know Frank was psychic in his own way. And Beefheart is fucking obviously psychic. So it's like Frank and Dawn knew they were unique, and Gail joins them. I think he fantasized that his core friends were this group taking over the world. And he had me there. I mean, I was a friend, but I wasn't telling him anything of what I was really doing, so I never got asked to be in the band. He didn't know. He was working for me. So who am I? I'm Jerry, or am I Hip? Hip confronts Jerry and becomes the last part of the gestalt. It's conscious. I am Hip.
Well, you said you were Lone, too. You're all of them.
I'm all of them. Yeah, you're going to get like that there. I'm all of them.
Those are all your bodies, actually.
Yeah, they're the 6 bodies. Yeah.
6 bodies.
Yeah. And we had, now, so there was twins. Who were these people? Look, I'm called an idiot all the time, and that's what Lone was called, an idiot. Telepathic ability. He knows he can make people do what he wants them to. I get everybody to do stuff for me, right?
Yes, but the original meaning of idiot is somebody who doesn't care about politics.
Well, McLuhan used to say it's a person who is a private person. In Greek society, he would read. He'd be private. I mean, yeah, if you mean by politics, social life, he's not involved too much in social, political games.
So, in a way, they were all freaks, idiots, because, they're not into
regular stuff.
Engaging the entertainment.
Right. So you got Janie, an 8-year-old with a telekinetic gift. You have the twins, Bonnie and Beanie, who cannot speak but possess the ability to teleport. Builds a shelter in the forest, joined by 3 runaway children. The Lone, Janie, the twins, and baby form are later called the Homo Gestalt. Okay, so you have, hey, guess what Jerry's name is? Jerry Thompson. William Irwin Thompson. Yeah. And you remember Ian said, and Ian usually has a reason for saying things that he'll fill in later. He says, we have no clue who the fuck or what Thompson is. Remember they said that? They say he's a strange bird. We don't know what he is. So he's a street urchin. He did grow up in abusive situations, if you read his biography, his story on himself. So, Lone had instructed kids to seek out Alicia. So Jerry killed... Am I still there? Can you hear me? I just heard a click.
Yes.
Yeah. Who killed Alicia? He killed it. So yeah, Jerry kills Alicia. So Thompson kills Alicia, and the group returned to living alone in the woods. That's what we are. And Maui's like living alone in the woods. Now, this hip guy. Now, we discovered KRS-One last week, right? The hip-hop historian, the guy who was there at the beginning. You guys see that recording that Ora sent me? No. Yeah, you saw that, Roxy. You know, the black guy knows the whole history of hip-hop.
I saw it a long time ago, but I haven't seen it again.
You're mumbling.
Yes, I saw a history of hip-hop a long time ago. I don't know if it's the same one. I haven't seen that one.
Oh.
I don't know if it's the same.
You, a long time you watched it, so you didn't watch the one I posted. Well, it's pretty good. I remember
maybe it's another one.
Somebody was very impressed with Gene, was it you? Who were impressed with the ionic ideas that this guy said?
No.
Oop.
No, I haven't
There's
heard
Susanna. Sorry, Susanna. Anything you wanted to say that we missed?
No. I'm listening to the story of...
So you guys like the story?
I did, yeah.
It's the ultimate kid fantasy.
So
Every kid...
How is this spiritual for Zappa?
It's ESP, psychic stuff. That's what happens when you're ascended. You can do all this stuff. And he said in the United Meditations questionnaire, is God ESP? All these kids have variations of ESP.
Well, actually, everybody has it.
Yep.
But because of the junk DNA, the disconnection, many apps are not working.
Yes. A lot of people have broken ESP. But what? It's a kid's fantasy to find friends, and they form this neat little secret society that makes them smarter than the adults, and they can leave the adult world, right? Don't have to go to school, and they go live off in the woods somewhere. So that's a kid's fantasy.
Yeah.
And so Frank is celebrating this novel. It's pretty neat. And it involves anti-gravity.
And I think all musicians experience that when you play. There are things, you just look at somebody or you just know how to react and when to stop.
Yeah.
To go
That's a good point.
and stuff like this.
Well, what's your point? You're talking about people you find that are simpatico with you? Is that what you're saying?
When you're in a band, you develop some type of ESP.
Yes.
Many things are not said. You just stop or go faster or
right.
somehow know.
Yes.
So I suppose he
it's a musical metaphor for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. I think it's a great story.
That he knew we had these abilities.
Yes. See, and that's where I say he's spiritual. And what he said to me was he didn't discuss psychic stuff with immature people. That's because it was serious. That's because it was the hidden ground of his whole metaphor. That's more ionized fucking proof of him being ionized prophet. Right?
Yes.
Right.
There were the story involved retrieved technology and even the retrieved technology was destroyed because in anticipation.
It's an exact description of me, Carolyn, and JW, and Ion.
Yes,
Wow.
It's the thing with all thunders that, for example, when the Bible.
I pointed out to Roxy the other day that she says, for example, too many times. Now she can't fucking say it without commenting.
For
example, what we just heard.
Started, there was a lot of prophecy about the end of the world because every time there is a new thunder, there is a disruption and a meltdown of the old
of the previous world. It always destroys the previous world.
This is right. What they say, they had to get rid of the anti-gravitational machine, or I don't know what is the name?
Anti-grav device. It just says anti-grav
device.
GRAV.
Because the new technologies are going to disrupt and provoke the meltdown of the old environment.
And that's part of our evolution right now. We're on the edge of all kinds of technologies which will be devastating to the ones that are the idols now. And so how are we going to make this transition without somebody getting hurt? And that's the big drama that the Emirates say. In 500 years, they'll have a technology that will make everybody forget everything they ever knew in some drastic way. And there's a fight, an Armageddon, over whether to push the button or not, whether to use the technology. So it's always been the case about whether to use the technology. Most of the last 150 years, because inventors are indifferent to the effects of the environment, we just plowed forward making technologies. Now we got
McLuhan a lot about the last expansion developing ESP.
Say it again, Rox. What?
Yeah, that McLuhan was talking a lot about the last expansion of technology creating ESP.
Right. He talked
already with the electronic environment.
He called electricity an environment of ESP. That's a title in a 50s essay, Electronics as ESP. And then he talks about the extension of consciousness, and then the Android meme would be that, and that's after the satellite, and before Coldplay. And Thompson's pretty good at describing the Android meme as noetic polity. What else there you were saying? McLuhan was definitely, that's why I liked McLuhan, because he would bring those elements in. And then Thompson would bring it even more, because I was always interested in that stuff going way back.
When you're talking about pressing the button or not, that seems like a sort of I'm hearing, is there Pandeides in that? Is there some sort of both and in that sort of concept that's being presented? I mean, because I'm kind of filtering that through the Thompson stuff, and it's like, for there to even be a button to push or not, that's a very philosophical sort of standpoint. And he kind of brings in, I don't know, what do you think about that thought?
You're saying too many ideas. Just as we've censored Rox, we're censoring you. No more, it's like this. And there's another phrase we say a lot. I'm sick of this rambling
it's like
shit.
This. You're right, I do ramble.
You ramble. I don't know what, you didn't really make a coherent statement there. What? Do it again.
You're right.
I don't know what you said.
Right.
What is your point?
I'm sensing that there is a connection between some of the fact that you can push a button or not, that you just brought up.
That's mediatology. That's knowing a technology is going to have effect. What's interesting, they know it's going to erase. How did that come? They know what it's going to do, but they know that it's going to erase their memories. Erase something. They won't know where they are anymore. Okay, so they know the effects.
Okay, so the fact that there's a decision involved, that seems like a philosophical standpoint. And I'm drawing that parallel to how Thompson breaks down the philosophy of choice, or how people think of themselves, or how society is functioning. And I'm just wondering about that. I don't really have a specific question. I just was wondering what your comments on that was.
Well, your word philosophy is difficult. Because they're going to know what it's going to do to them, that's not philosophy, that's knowing.
But no, the decision to push the button or not. Isn't decision brings in something different than knowing. You can know something, but to make a decision, like McLuhan was like, okay.
You're saying too much.
Okay. McLuhan was stating for us to turn off an environment that we can then see the effects or see the changes. So there's some sort of decision involved in the turning off. And that's why I'm bringing in philosophy. Not the knowing of what it's going to do or not, but the decision to do so or not.
Well, what's philosophy? I don't know what philosophy is in the way you're using it.
Maybe that's the wrong term.
You mean speculation?
Yeah, I think a lot of philosophy is speculation.
Right, that's what you mean. So they're going to be speculating about what's going to happen, and they don't know if they can dare do it. Yeah, okay, so they're speculating. Now, what's that got to do with what are we else talking about, more than human, or what are you comparing it to?
I don't know right now.
No, do you notice how you rambled on? Figure out how your mind works. You thought you were saying something. We now get down to basics. What you're saying, you don't even know you don't know what it meant. So what were you talking about?
I have a leaning towards an idea, and I like to develop.
What's the idea? Don't speculate. What's the idea?
The idea is that the decision to push a button or not, that seems like a narrative. That seems like, that it has some sort of weight.
Hey, is this your university education coming in here? A narrative? What do you mean? It seems like a narrative. What's wrong with that? And why even say that? Look, they say, look, if we do this, we're in shit. Or some of us think we're in shit. And some people say, no, it's going to be good. So there's the question. There's no narrative unless that's a speculative projection.
Right, she started out by saying that there's some Hendiades aspect here with the both hands on whether to push the button or not. And isn't that some sort of end point?
Yeah, I don't know why I was bringing that up, but it seemed relevant.
You got a lot of intuition mixed in with your language.
Yeah, I do. I need to
maybe
learn.
That's a musician.
I want to learn how to say more statements that you can react to, but I do have like an intuitive sense, and so yeah, I'll try to wrap it up a little bit more.
Okay, but are we relating this to Sturgeon's novel? Or Iandom? What were you relating?
It was your comment about technologies that are out there.
We're talking about ESP.
Bringing in a new technology without
We're talking
destruction.
about bringing new technology without keeping in mind about what effects it has on the environment. You made a comment
you were talking about not having...
You were talking about that there's a lot of... you have right now technologies that are going to have effects. And that there are scientists or inventors that have brought on lots of technologies that bring them on without any consideration for what effect or impact it's going to have on the environment.
Right.
And you made a reference to pushing a button or not pushing a button. You made
the Evergreen scenario for Armageddon.
Yeah.
That's the Evergreen's prediction. That'll be the final Armageddon. And they didn't tell us what the decision was, but there'd be a war over what to do, whether to push the button and apply it or not. That's what the war will be.
So that concept seems to conflict with everything that's already happened. Like the fact that there's some sort of decision hanging in the balance. That's kind of why I'm bringing in the both and. Because to hear a scenario like that about the future and to relate sort of some accuracy or some artistry to a medium, you were bringing up earlier.
You're bringing extra words to relate some accuracy or artistry. I don't know what that means. You didn't need to say that.
Okay, here. This is what I mean: is that the mediums, like they're not completely factual 100% of the time. It seems like there's like an art to understanding what they're saying, how to question them, how to gain some sort of knowledge.
What are you talking about? The Evergreens? They
mediums in general, from what I've heard you talk about the Evergreens. Listening to the Evergreens.
See how you did not say anything about mediums at the beginning of your paragraph. I didn't know you'd switch to that topic.
Okay. So.
See, that could be the musical part. Like Roxy said, you musicians leave things unsaid.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still there, Roxy?
Jane.
What? Was that her? Was that Roxy?
I'm there, but I'm not.
You're what? You're not here? You're only here for your friends?
Well, I got distracted.
Okay, well, I'm saying that she's talking like a musician. She's leaving things unsaid.
No.
You're even confused your fellow musician, Alyssa.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, the point.
Yeah, I can't remember her name. What's her name? Elisa? What is it? Alyssa.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah, I'm talking to Nate's your friend. Is that Alyssa? What is your name?
Yes, it's Alyssa, Bob. Jerry killed Alicia, so this is not.
Yeah,
Alicia.
that was close. That's where I got mixed up with Alicia. Very close to Alicia. Alyssa can claim she was part of this story.
No. Okay, so
let's start over again. What are you saying?
If everything's already happened, and that's a sort of narrative or concept. Or what? Like it takes out narrative in a way, but it still puts it in there. That's where the both and is. So
and you're talking about what the Evergreen said, right?
I am mainly concerning. Yeah, I'm contrasting that everything's already happened with this scenario you're presenting, Bob, that the Evergreen said about this button that needs to get pushed, and that is an interesting, like. How do you how do you translate? How do you like that, Bob? How do
I like it? Yeah, what's it
how
like?
How do you like it? Yeah, do you like it?
No, I don't like it. I'm not clicking like.
Yeah, don't click like. Yeah. Give me some intuitive response.
Okay, so there's this scenario, and everything has already happened.